Hey guys, tonight we're plunging into a chilling bedtime history twist why it sucked to be Adolf Hitler during World War II. Ever think being the ultimate dictator meant endless power and glory? Shockingly, this guy who sparked a war killing over 70 million ended up a trembling wreck in a stinking bunker, jacked on drugs, and so paranoid he tested cyanide on his beloved dog Blondie before offing himself. What if his iron will was just a cover for a lifetime of failures that spiraled into self-made hell, kinda like a modern entrepreneur hyping their empire only to crash in isolation? If that irony creeps you out or hits too close to home, hit pause and comment. What's the biggest failure you've turned into a lesson? Or share your wildest what if on how unchecked grudges ruin lives. We'll unpack the eerie parallels tonight. Welcome back to our cozy corner of bedtime history, where we blend creepy realism with empathy to unwind and reflect before sleep. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little time machine reaches. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drift through the misty avenues of Vienna, the year edging into 1908, your footsteps echoing off slick cobblestones that grip like reluctant confessions under your worn soles. The air clings heavy with the acrid tang of coal fires mingling with the faint rot of overripe fruit from street vendors. A gritty perfume that seeps into your collar and lingers like unspoken regrets. You're barely out of boyhood, gripping a worn leather portfolio stuffed with sketches sweeping arches of the imagined cathedrals, armoured figures clashing in epic frays, all born from a fire in your chest that refuses to dim. But today, that flame sputters. The Academy of Fine Arts has slammed its doors again, their critique ringing in your ears like a mocking whisper, aptitude for structures, but no grasp of the human soul. The irony stings sharper than the autumn chill you, yearning to immortalize life's grandeur on paper. Now feel utterly erased amid the throngs of strangers who bustle past without a glance. That loneliness uncoils like a slow fog from the Danube's banks, wrapping your shoulders in a damp shroud. Each inhale tasting of isolation and unspent ambition. It's not mere setback, it's a gnawing void, echoing tales you've read of American families weathering the Great Depression, huddled in shanty towns where dreams curdled into dust storms of despair. But here, in this gilded maze of Vienna, baroque facades looming over shadowed alleys reeking of sewage and stale bread, your solitude sharpens into something personal, a tactile ache. The rough wool of your frayed jacket chafes against your skin like a constant rebuke, while the distant clang of tram bells mocks your aimless wanderings. You hunch over notebooks in dimly lit hostels, the scent of mildewed walls and flickering gas lamps fueling darker visions, not just heroic tales, but shadowed fortresses, warriors locked in endless strife, your pencil strokes growing harsher, more vengeful. Absurd, isn't it you, with visions of beauty dancing in your head, starts sculpting bitterness instead, whispering blames at the cosmopolitan elite you imagine pulling strings against you, a grudge that will one day carve empires from blood. Sensory echoes heighten the unease, the bitter drip of ersatz coffee on your tongue, mirroring the sour knot in your stomach as doors keep closing. Visual glimpses haunt ornate timber homes tilting like disapproving guardians, labyrinthine paths that circle back, ensnaring you in failure's web. Empathy whispers softly, you weren't forged in malice, just a youth chasing canvases in a world that turned them to ash. But here's the ironic nudge that settles as you unwind. What if that very hunger for creation, that underdog spark, ignited not masterpieces but monstrosities? Modern echoes resonate like a budding creator today, ghosted by galleries, funneling frustration into viral rants that echo far beyond intent. Reflect on that as Vienna's haze softens, a gentle ASMR veil drawing you deeper into rest, where discomfort fades into wisdom, grudges unhealed don't build, they bury. Yet, in this creeping twilight, you sense the first twinge of something darker brewing, a discomfort that hints at the horrors born from such quiet despair. The streets narrow ahead, pulling you toward choices that will redefine not just your path, but the world's. For now, let the fog envelop you softly, easing the irony into a reflective hush. Where failure's sting becomes a bedtime whisper, release it. or let it consume. You press forward through the thickening haze of Vienna's rejection. The year now 1914, your boots sinking into the mud-slicked trenches of the Western Front, where the earth's damp chill seeps through your uniform like a persistent whisper of doubt. The air reeks of cordite and decay, a sharp metallic bite mixed with the foul rot of unburied bodies and overflowing latrines. Textures that cling to your skin like an unwelcome second layer, gritty and unrelenting. You're no longer the aimless artist sketching in shadowed corners. War has claimed you, thrusting a rifle into your hands and a helmet over your brow, turning your underdog isolation into something sharper, more immediate, a dispatch runner darting between shell craters under a sky fractured by artillery fire. The recurring loneliness spreads here too, but now it's amplified by the thunderous roar of guns that echo like distant accusations, their vibrations rumbling through your chest as if the ground itself is breathing in ragged gasps. You weave through the filth of no man's land, messages clutched in your fist, heart pounding with a mix of terror and exhilaration. Ironic. Isn't it you, who once flinched at the sting of an art critic's pen, now charge into hails of bullets with a bravery that earns you the Iron Cross, second class, a gleaming medal pinned to your chest like a badge of survival? But sarcasm creeps in amid the empathy for your raw grit, courageous in the trenches, dodging death daily. Yet back in the rear lines, you avoid dentists like the plague, letting your teeth rot from neglect, a petty fear that foreshadows the decay gnawing at your core. Historical tidbit whispers through the smoke over 8 million soldiers died in this war. But you, the obscure corporal, emerge scarred yet alive, your underdog story hardening into myth. Visual flashes assault you, barbed wire twisting like skeletal vines across blasted fields. The flicker of distant flares casting long shadows over huddled comrades in mud-caked greatcoats. Their faces gaunt under helmets that gleam faintly in the torchlight of signal fires, motifs of light piercing the grime, symbolizing fleeting hope amid the filth that cakes your boots and stains your soul. The discomfort builds, a sensory struggle as the wet earth pulls at your legs like invisible hands, mirroring the weight of betrayal you feel brewing. You cling to the stab-in-the-back myth. That poisonous tale of politicians and Jews undermining the front debate rages even now among historians. Was it a real conspiracy, or just a convenient lie to explain defeat? Empathy tugs gently. You're not yet the monster, just a young man grasping for meaning in the chaos, much like Americans clawing through the Great Depression, surviving breadlines and dust bowls only to let resentment fester into division. But here's the ironic aside that settles with a sardonic chuckle. You endure the horrors of gas attacks and endless rain, emerging tougher. Yet that very resilience twists into something toxic, feeding grudges that will one day consume empires. The loneliness evolves here, no longer a quiet fog, but a roaring isolation amid the camaraderie of the trenches, brothers in arms laughing over shared cigarettes. Yet you stand apart, sketching battle plans in your mind, your thoughts drifting to a future where survival means domination. Modern parallels flicker like those signal flares. Living through this war's grind is like pushing through economic collapse today, scraping by on freelance gigs during a recession, only to let the bitterness morph into online extremism, ranting in forums that echo your growing rage. What would you do? Drifting off now? If survival's scars turned you inward, away from healing, poll your thoughts quietly. Would you cling to myths of betrayal, or seek the light beyond the filth as the barrage softens in your imagination? The pacing eases, the sensory assault fading into a rhythmic hum of distant echoes, like a fan's whisper lulling you toward reflection. Empathy for the broken boy soldier, sarcasm for the absurd bravery that sows its own downfall, a gentle unwind where discomfort dissolves into wisdom's hush, reminding you that endurance without compassion leads only to deeper shadows. Yet, as you hunker down in a shallow dugout, the mud squelching under your weight like a living thing, the war's relentless grind presses on, sharpening your edges while dulling your doubts. You scribble notes in the dim glow of a lantern, the flickering light dancing across pages filled with visions of a stronger Germany. Born from this crucible of suffering, the smell of wet canvas and gun oil fills your nostrils, a constant companion in this underworld of endurance, where every breath is a small victory against the elements. Comrades share tales around a meager fire, their voices low against the occasional whine of incoming shells. But you listen with half an ear, your mind already forging myths from the mire. Irony lingers in the smoke this hellish proving ground. Meant to break men, is moulding you into something unbreakable, or so you believe. But empathy surfaces amid the sarcasm. In this shared misery, you're all underdogs, clinging to survival, much like those Dust Bowl farmers in America, tilling barren soil while dreaming of greener fields. The debate echoes faintly, did the Warforge heroes or monsters? For now, as the night deepens and the front quiets to an uneasy truce, let that question settle softly, a reflective pause in the chaos, where the discomfort of the trench eases into a hushed contemplation, guiding you towards sleep with the gentle wisdom that scars, if unhealed, carve paths not to strength, but to shadowed destinies. You emerge from the war's grinding maw, the year slipping into 1919, your body intact but your spirit scarred, carrying the Iron Cross like a talisman against the chaos swallowing Germany. The air in Munich tastes of defeat, a bitter mix of coal dust and desperation wafting from overcrowded streets where demobilized soldiers huddle like ghosts, their uniforms frayed and eyes hollow. You're back among the living, but the loneliness that once coiled quietly now surges with purpose, mutated into a simmering rage fueled by the stab-in-the-back legend, a tale you cling to fiercely, blaming politicians, socialists, and Jews for snatching victory from the jaws of the front lines. Sensory echoes linger, the phantom rumble of artillery in your ears fades to the murmur of street protests, but the chill of betrayal seeps deeper, a psychological frost that numbs your fingers as you grip pamphlets in beer halls, scribbling notes that harden your isolation into ideology. You join the German Workers' Party, a fringe group of nationalists venting their fury in smoky rooms reeking of stale beer and tobacco, where the heat from overcrowded bodies clashes with the draft sneaking through cracked windows. It's here, amid the clink of mugs and heated debates, that your voice finds its edge raw, magnetic, drawing crowds who see in you not just a speaker, but a saviour. Ironic, isn't it you, the war survivor who dodged bullets but couldn't dodge dentists, now dodging questions of your own mediocrity by channeling resentment into rhetoric? The discomfort deepens, a sensory struggle as the warmth of adoring eyes battles the cold knot in your gut, that emerging empathy for your own fractured self clashing with the sarcasm of your ascent from trench rat to rising star, yet still haunted by the filth of failure that clings like trench mud to your boots. By 1923, you've reshaped the party into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis, and styled yourself its undisputed leader, the Führer. The swastika flag you design flutters in rallies, its black arms twisting like shadows over torchlit crowds, motifs of light-piercing grime now mutating into flames that illuminate your path but cast long, ominous silhouettes. You attempt the beer hall putsch, a bold coup inspired by Mussolini's March on Rome, storming a Munich beer hall with loyalists, the air thick with gunpowder and shouts, the metallic tang of fear mixing with the yeasty scent of spilled ale. But it fails spectacularly. Police fire, comrades fall, and you're arrested for treason, your body wounded, your pride shattered. Visuals assault you, blood-streaked floors reflecting flickering lanterns, handcuffs biting into your wrists like reminders of Vienna's rejections. The courtroom, a stage where you turn defeat into defiance, portraying yourself as a patriot betrayed. The trial becomes your platform, sarcasm dripping from your defense. History will absolve me, you declare, ironic given the horrors yet to come. Sentenced to 5 years but serving only 9 months in Landsberg prison, you find unexpected comfort in its relative warmth, a clean cell with books and visitors, the smell of fresh ink on paper replacing the trench's rot. Here, you dictate Mein Kampf to Rudolf Hess, your ramblings on racial purity and Lebensraum pouring out like venom, the pages filling with a blueprint for empire born from personal vendetta. Historical tidbit, over 12 million copies sold by war's end, turning your prison manifesto into a bestseller absurd. Isn't it a rejected artist's diary becoming a nation's poison pen? Sensory immersion pulls you in the scratch of pen on paper like nails on chalkboard. The faint, musty odour of bound volumes evoking conspiracy's aroma, spreading through your veins. deepening the irony as emerging empathy whispers you're writing to heal your wounds, yet scripting wounds for millions. Academic uncertainty lingers in the debate. Was your rise genius manipulation of Weimar's chaos, or mere opportunist riding economic despair? Historians argue even now. Some seeing calculated charisma amid hyperinflation storm prices doubling daily. Bread costing billions of marks, others viewing you as a lucky demagogue exploiting the vacuum left by Versailles' humiliations. Modern aside echoes like a viral podcaster today capitalizing on recession fury. Building a cult from rants that promise rebirth but deliver division. Your words ignite in beer halls, spreading like wildfire through desperate crowds. The loneliness spreading mutates further. Now a calculated isolation where you surround yourself with an inner circle, Goebbels, Himmler, Goering, pledging undying loyalty. Yet the twist hints early their devotion is laced with ambition, foreshadowing betrayals that will leave you truly alone. What if your manifesto, scrawled in that warm cell, was the first crack in your own facade? Would you recognize the danger or embrace it? Poll your drifting thoughts in a moment of quiet power. Would you question the cost or double down? As the prison gates swing open in 1924, the pacing builds curiosity, the chill of impending ascent easing into reflective hush. Where irony softens into wisdom, power's warmth often hides the coldest shadows, easing the gentle unwind, inviting you to ponder how fragile loyalty truly is before sleep claims you. Yet, stepping into the crisp air outside Landsberg, you feel a surge of vindication. The prison walls behind you not a cage but a forge, tempering your will into something unbreakable, or so it seems. The streets of Munich buzz with unrest, the Weimar Republic's fragility evident in the ragged crowds and shuttered shops, where the scent of fresh-baked bread mingles with the acrid smoke of street fires lit by protesters. You rebuild the party methodically, drawing in disaffected veterans and angry youths, your speeches in packed halls resonating with promises of renewal, the echo of your voice bouncing off wooden beams like thunder in a confined space. Ironic empathy surfaces these followers, much like you once were, seek belonging in a world that has cast them aside. Their applause a balm for your lingering scars, yet sarcasm underscores the scene you rail against corruption, while weaving your own web of influence, turning personal grudges into political fuel. The discomfort evolves, no longer just isolation, but a growing awareness of the monster stirring within, as your words incite not just hope but hatred. The torchlight rallies casting flickering glows on faces twisted in fervour. Visual motifs intensify swastikas emblazoned on banners waving like dark omens, the crowd's raised arms forming a sea of uniformity that drowns individual doubt. Historical debates swirl in hindsight. Was this the moment genius met madness, or when opportunism masked deeper psychosis? Modern parallels draw closer. Imagine a social media influencer amassing followers during a financial crash, their viral posts blending grievance with charisma, only to spiral into echo chambers of extremism. As you consolidate power, the loneliness spreading takes on new form, a self-imposed barrier where admiration replaces intimacy, leaving you elevated yet utterly alone. Reflect on that as the rally's roar fades to a distant hum, a bedtime whisper urging empathy for the fractured soul beneath the rising demagogue, sarcasm for the absurd path from prison scribe to party prophet, and a gentle chill of wisdom ambition unchecked is a fire that warms briefly before consuming all in its path, easing you toward rest with the quiet assurance that true strength lies not in domination, but in the humility to question one's own shadows. You step out from Landsberg's shadow into the crisp Munich sunlight of 1924, the prison's iron gates clanging shut behind you like a punctuation mark on one chapter, only to open another fraught with ambition's sharper edges. The air tastes cleaner here, laced with the faint bloom of spring lilacs cutting through the urban grit, but the loneliness spreading hasn't vanished. It morphs, seeping into your veins like ink from the manifesto you've just penned, turning personal isolation into a calculated armour. You rebuild the Nazi Party methodically, drawing in the disillusioned with speeches that ignite beer halls, the scent of sweat and hops thickening the atmosphere as your words weave promises of renewal from the Weimar Republic's ashes. Rallies grow larger, torchlight flickering across faces hungry for direction, motifs of light now mutating into bonfires that symbolize not just hope, but the consuming blaze of ideology. casting shadows that stretch longer with each passing year. By the late 1920s, you've renounced your Austrian citizenship, embracing Germany as your spiritual home, the bureaucratic ink drying on forms that feel like a rebirth ironic. Isn't it you, the wanderer rejected by Vienna's academies, now rejecting borders to forge a new identity? Yet that very act deepens the discomfort, a sensory struggle where the crisp snap of official stamps echoes the closing doors of your youth. The party swells under your command, aesthetics meticulously crafted red banners snapping in the wind like warning flags, the swastika's arms twisting in hypnotic symmetry, raised salutes creating waves of uniformity that drown individual doubt. You surround yourself with an inner circle Goebbels with his silver tongue, Himmler with his meticulous fanaticism, Goering with his flamboyant militarism, each reflecting fragments of your vision. But sarcasm whispers through the empathy these loyalists pledge undying devotion, yet their eyes gleam with personal ambition, foreshadowing the betrayals that will one day leave your empire hollow. The 1929 Wall Street crash hits Germany like a tidal wave, banks collapsing, unemployment soaring to millions, the air in breadlines thick with the sour reek of despair and unwashed desperation, much like the Dust Bowl's dust-choked winds in America, where families fled barren farms, their resilience tested in ways that mirror your nation's fracture. You seize this chaos, touring the country with speeches that blend nationalism and anti-Semitism, promising strength where weakness reigns. Absurd tidbit you rail against Jewish capitalists for the crash, yet your own party's coffers swell from donations by opportunistic industrialists. A hypocritical twist that fuels your rise while gnawing at the irony of your underdog narrative. Historical debate simmers here. Were you a master manipulator, exploiting economic ruin, or merely an opportunist riding the wave of Weimar's failures? As some scholars argue, the Republic's instability created the perfect storm for demagogues like you. As 1933 dawns, political deadlock hands you the chancellorship, a legal cloak for the dictatorship to come. The Reichstag fire that February becomes your gift, flames licking the night sky in Berlin, the acrid smoke billowing like a harbinger, allowing you to suspend civil liberties and arrest opponents under the guise of communist conspiracy. Sensory immersion heightens the unease, the crackle of burning timbers mirrors the snap of breaking freedoms. The heat on your face a fleeting warmth amid the growing chill of fear spreading through the populace. You consolidate power swiftly, the enabling act passes amid intimidation, granting you dictatorial rule, political parties banned, trade unions dissolved, the press muzzled, visual zoom out. Poetic from your office window, Berlin transforms from a vibrant capital to a stage of spectacle. Massive rallies in Nuremberg where seas of salutes undulate under spotlights, the swastika banners flapping like dark wings over a hypnotized crowd, motifs of filth mutating from trench mud into the moral grime of repression, where empathy for the oppressed clashes with your ironic detachment. You see yourself as redeemer, yet the discomfort builds as whispers of arrests reach even your ears. The discomfort intensifies, a heightened fear laced with ironic detachment you, the vegetarian preaching health and purity, begin enacting laws that starve souls and bodies. The Nuremberg laws of 1935 stripping Jews of citizenship, their marriages criminalized, professions barred. Absurd tidbit you abstain from meat for vitality, yet orchestrate policies that will lead to the starvation of millions in ghettos and camps. Sarcastic. No. The hypocrisy gnaws like an untreated ache. Your own health subtly declining with unexplained tremors and digestive woes, early signs of the decay that power can't cure. Modern comparison flickers like a wellness influencer today, touting clean living while profiting from exploitative schemes. Your public image gleams while private shadows lengthen. But the adrenaline creeps lightly now, curiosity building as you sense the empire's foundations cracking. Will your ascent hold, or will the weight of your own myths crush you? You push forward regardless. Remilitarizing the Rhineland in 1936, the air tense, with the clank of tanks rolling unopposed, a bold gamble that succeeds when France and Britain hesitate. Their appeasement feeding your confidence like fuel to a fire. The Anschluss with Austria in 1938 follows, troops marching into your birthplace to cheers, the scent of Alpine flowers mixing with exhaust fumes, a triumphant return that masks the growing paranoia irony deepening as Vienna, once your tormentor now bows. Visual poetic zoom crowds lining streets, petals thrown like confetti over armoured vehicles, but in the background, shadowed figures whisper of resistance, motifs of light now tainted by the filth of forced unity, empathy stirring for those silenced voices amid your detached glee. The Munich Agreement that year hands you the Sudetenland without a shot. Chamberlain's Peace for Our Time, a hollow echo as you break promises months later, seizing the rest of Czechoslovakia. The discomfort heightens to fear, ironic detachment sharpening you crave conquest. Yet each victory isolates you further, the inner circle's flattery ringing false. Historical debate rages was appeasement a fatal error, or inevitable given the scars of World War I. You signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with Stalin in 1939, a cynical non-aggression deal with your ideological foe. The ink's sharp scent sealing a secret division of Poland absurd tidbit. Two tyrants toasting peace while plotting war. Your champagne bubbling like the lies beneath. September 1st, 1939, you unleash blitzkrieg on Poland. Tanks thundering across plains, the ground shaking under their treads. The air filled with the roar of Stuka dive bombers screaming like banshees. Success comes swiftly, but sucked from the start your health falters. Doctors prescribing amphetamines that jitter your nerves. The bitter pills dissolving on your tongue like foretastes of defeat. Sensory struggle piques the adrenaline of command clashes with the gnawing fatigue. Your hands trembling over maps as victories pile up Denmark, Norway, the Low Countries, France falling in weeks. Visual cinematic Paris boulevards empty under swastika flags. The Eiffel Tower looming like a conquered sentinel. But zoom out to the poetic irony, your triumphal pose there hides the emerging cracks. Motifs of filth now symbolizing deeper despair. The grime of rapid conquest staining your soul, as empathy whispers for the underdogs crushed beneath your advance. Sarcastic question lingers. You started as a painter, why not stick to canvases instead of redrawing borders in blood? Mood shifts, inviting thought. As the rush of blitzkrieg fades, reflect on how quick winds often sow slower ruins. A gentle chill easing you toward curiosity. What happens when the lightning strikes back? The strange image haunts your shadow, stretching long over conquered maps, twisted like the swastika itself. A chill set up for the storms ahead. You surge onward from the lightning strikes of 1940, your armies sweeping through France like a storm unchained. The year now cresting into summer's peak, where Paris falls on June 14th, its boulevards echoing with the clatter of German boots on cobblestone still warm from the sun's retreat. The air in the conquered city hums with a deceptive calm, laced with the faint ozone tang of recent bombardments and the subtle floral whisper of abandoned gardens. But beneath it lurks a sensory undercurrent of unease, the distant rumble of engines fading into an ominous hush. Textures of velvet curtains in looted hotels brushing against your gloved hands like fleeting illusions of triumph. You're at the pinnacle, posing triumphantly before the Eiffel Tower's iron lattice, its shadow stretching long and jagged across the empty Champs-Élysées, a visual motif of conquest mutating from the torchlit rallies of Nuremberg into this metallic sentinel of subjugation, where light filters through its beams like fractured hope dimming into despair. Yet the discomfort coils tighter, a heightened fear bubbling beneath your iron facade as whispers of early cracks reach your ears. Britain refuses to yield. Churchill's defiant broadcast crackling over radios like static challenging your thunder. You order the Luftwaffe to crush them, launching the Battle of Britain in July, waves of bombers droning across the Channel, the sky over England a canvas of chaos painted with contrails and explosions. Sensory immersion engulfs you, the whine of Stuka sirens piercing like screams in a nightmare, the acrid bite of gunpowder smoke carried on crosswinds, making your throat tighten as reports filter back of mounting losses. Visual zoom out poetic from your command post. The horizon blurs into a mosaic of flaming wrecks plummeting into the sea. RAF Spitfires darting like avenging spirits through clouds that swallow your planes whole. The once brilliant torchlight of aerial dominance fading into the grey haze of attrition. Motifs of illumination now sputtering like dying embers in a gathering storm. Ironic detachment sharpens the blade you, the strategist who orchestrated Blitzkrieg's swift poetry. Now watch your air force bleed out over English fields. Sarcasm dripping as Goering promises victory while indulging in morphine haze. his flamboyant uniforms hiding a crumbling resolve. Fascinating tidbit your Luftwaffe chief, once a dashing ace, now hoards looted art like a magpie, absurdly amassing treasures amid the ruins he's helping create over 20,000 pieces stolen across Europe, a hoard that mirrors your own unquenched thirst for grandeur, yet exposes the rot within. The fear intensifies, a crisis brewing in your chest like the building pressure of ignored warnings, generals urging shifts in tactics but dismissed in fits of rage, their counsel echoing the Art Academy's rejections that once stung so deeply. Historical uncertainty swirls in the debate. Were you a military genius undone by hubris, or a fool from the start? As some argue your overconfidence in air superiority ignored Britain's radar network, a technological edge that turned your blitz into a blunder. Modern parallel resonates like a tech mogul today, ignoring engineers' alerts on a flawed product launch, hyping innovation only to watch market share evaporate in regulatory backlash. Your detachment breeds isolation, empathy emerging for the pilots you send to their deaths. Young men not unlike your trench comrades, their screams lost in the ether as empathy tugs at the edges of your callous commands. You pivot to terror-bombing London in September, the Blitz unleashing nightly infernos, the distant boom of explosions rolling like thunder over the Thames. But Britain's resolve holds, their underground shelters buzzing with defiant songs amid the rubble's dust-choked air. Sensory peak assaults the imagined heat of flames licking historic spires, the metallic taste of fear in reports of civilian casualties mounting, yet your own discomfort peaks in mirrored paranoia. Distrust generals like Holder who question your genius, their memos crumpled in your fist like discarded sketches. Clever commentary slips in with sarcasm you decry Britain's decadence while your regime loots their allies' treasures, a hypocritical loop that feeds your growing alienation, fear crisis heightening as victories slip away, empathy whispering for the underdog islanders enduring what you once did in the trenches. The battle ends in failure by October, your Luftwaffe crippled, Operation Sea Lion scrapped, the Channel a mocking barrier where your dreams of invasion drown, visual cinematic Paris boulevards empty under swastika flags, the Eiffel Tower looming like a conquered sentinel. But zoom out to the poetic irony, your triumphal pose there hides the emerging cracks, motifs of fading torchlight now fully mutated into the despair of overcast skies, where light yields to endless grey. Adrenaline pulses lightly through the sarcasm how absurd. The artist of destruction unable to paint the skies red indefinitely, yet empathy balances the chill, a gentle nod to human endurance beyond your grasp. Question invites reflection. If you ignored every warning like this, would you see the irony before it consumed you, or laugh it off in denial? The mood shifts to a psychological chill, curiosity lingering on the eastern horizon where greater storms brew, easing into a balanced unwind where fear's edge softens, paving the way for deeper shadows ahead. But the multi-twist unfolds as you turn eastward, the Soviet pact fracturing in June 1941 with Operation Barbarossa, over 3 million troops surging into Russia, the air thick with diesel fumes and the thunder of panzer engines carving through vast plains. Sensory overload hits the endless steppes, stretching like an unforgiving canvas. Dust clouds choking your throat as initial victories pile up. Minsk falls. Smolensk crumbles, but winter's bite waits, mutating the filth of advance into frozen despair. Bodies stiffening in snowdrifts like forgotten sculptures. Ironic commentary bites you, the Lebensraum visionary seeking space for Aryans. Now watch your men vanish into Russia's maw, sarcasm in the absurdity of lightning war bogged down in mud. Historical debate raging, was Barbarossa a fatal overreach, or a necessary ideological crusade against Bolshevism? As some revisionists claim, empathy surges for the underdogs on both sides, German soldiers freezing in inadequate uniforms, Soviet civilians enduring Einsatzgruppen massacres, their resilience a quiet counter to your hubris. Modern parallel draws near like a corporation expanding too fast into hostile markets, ignoring supply chain warnings only to face logistical collapse. Your fear peaks in the realization that quick wins breed deeper traps. The emotional peak crests in dual perspective, revisiting Hess's bizarre flight to Scotland for peace. A loyalist's desperate act that exposes your circle's fractures. The absurdity of his parachute drop into enemy hands like a misguided artist's leap into the unknown. Twist layers multiply. Pearl Harbor in December pulls America in. your declaration of war a self-inflicted wound. Ironic as you ally with Japan while your Eastern Front freezes. The discomfort, now a full crisis of fear. Detached by sarcasm, you mock Roosevelt's arsenal of democracy, yet feel its arsenal closing in. Visual poetic zoom, Siberian reinforcements charging through blizzards, their bayonets glinting like inverted torches, leitmotifs fully inverted into the darkness of retreat, where filth becomes eternal snow-blanketed graves. The strange image chills your map room in the wolf's lair, pins retreating like blood droplets on paper, a psychological setup for the paranoia that will devour you next. Mood shifting from adrenaline's edge to a balanced hush, where sarcasm tempers fear, empathy softens the blow, and curiosity pulls you onward into the gathering night. You hunker down in the opulent halls of the Reich Chancellery, the year 1941 unfurling like a blood-stained banner, your initial triumphs in the West now overshadowed by the colossal gamble eastward Operation Barbarossa, launches on June 22nd, 3 million troops slicing into the Soviet vastness like a blade through endless flesh. The air in your war room crackles with tension, heavy with the scent of polished oak and cigar smoke from Goering's indulgences. But beneath it lingers a subtler unease, the faint metallic tang of ink on fresh maps plotting lines that stretch into infinity. You're no longer the triumphant poser under Paris's tower. The discomfort from Britain's defiance has mutated into a gnawing fear, amplified by the scale of this new front, where the steppes swallow divisions whole. Their endless horizons a visual motif of ambition's overreach. Torchlight rallies flames, now flickering uncertainly against the encroaching Russian twilight, mutating from symbols of conquest into harbingers of the despair that devours overextended empires. Sensory immersion drags you into the fray, the thunderous roar of panzer engines vibrating through your bones like a relentless heartbeat, the dust-choked wind whipping across plains that reek of churned earth and diesel. Textures gritty against your skin even from afar as reports flood in Minsk encircled, Smolensk crumbling, millions of Soviet prisoners herded like cattle. But the irony detachment sharpens with sarcasm, you, the Lebensraum visionary craving space for your master race. Now watch your armies bog down in mud that clings like accusations, absurd tidbit revealing your vegetarian hypocrisy. You abstain from meat for purity, yet order the hunger plan to starve 30 million slaves for German grain, a policy that turns vast farmlands into graveyards, your own stomach twisting in private from amphetamine side effects that mimic the famine you're inflicting. The fear crisis escalates as winter descends unexpectedly early, the first snowflakes falling like silent judgments, mutating the filth of advance into frozen horror soldiers in inadequate coats huddling around meagre fires, their breaths visible in the biting air that numbs fingers and toes, frostbite claiming limbs as supplies dwindle. Visual zoom-out poetic endless white expanses dotted with blackened tank husks, like ink blots on a blank canvas, the recurring loneliness spreading now a howling blizzard isolating units, where torchlight motifs fade into the pale glow of signal flares lost in whiteouts, symbolizing hope's cruel evaporation amid deepening despair. You rage in Berlin, dismissing generals' pleas for retreat, your voice echoing off marble walls that feel colder with each telegram of losses, the sensory struggle peaking as the chill seeps through even your heated quarters, a psychological mirror to the front's torment. Historical uncertainty brews in the debate: was Barbarossa doomed by your ideological blindness, ignoring Napoleon's frozen fate, or by logistical hubris? As some argue, the vast distances made supply lines brittle, threads snapped by Soviet resilience, modern parallel strikes close like a startup founder overexpanding into uncharted markets, hyping rapid growth while ignoring warnings of supply chain collapse. Your fear morphs into paranoia, distrust festering as you micromanage from afar, empathy emerging fleetingly for the underdogs freezing in the snow your own men, once heroic in your eyes, now cannon fodder in a war of annihilation you decreed, their letters home smelling of despair and gun oil. The multi-twist unfolds brutally at Stalingrad. Your obsession with the city bearing Stalin's name turning a strategic target into a symbolic quagmire house to house, fighting in rubble-strewn streets. The Volga River running red with blood, the air thick with the stench of rotting corpses and cordite that clings to every breath. You refuse withdrawal, ordering Paulus's Sixth Army to hold, absurd tidbit underscoring the madness you promise air resupply like Göring's boastful assurances. But Luftwaffe planes falter in blizzards, dropping meagre crates amid encirclement, while you dine on sparse vegetarian meals in your distant headquarters. The irony of your purity contrasting the starvation you impose, sensory overload assaults the imagined crunch of snow under boots turning to slush mixed with blood. The constant crack of sniper fire echoing like accusations in narrow alleys. Visual flashes of bombed-out factories where shadows play tricks. Motifs of fading light, now the dim glow of oil lamps in basements, mutating into symbols of redemption's impossibility amid self-inflicted ruin. The emotional peak crashes as encirclement tightens. Fear, crisis heightening with ironic commentary, you who survived the trenches' filth, now condemn 300,000 to a slower death. Sarcasm biting as you promote Paulus to field marshal, knowing no German of that rank has ever surrendered, yet he does in February 1943 defeat a psychological hammer blow that shatters your invincibility myth. Empathy surges for the trapped soldiers, their frozen pleas a quiet counter to your rants. But detachment holds as you blame everyone but yourself. The discomfort a full-blown chill that seeps into your bones like the Russian winter you underestimated. Shocking element twists further amid the eastern carnage. Einsatzgruppen rampage behind lines. Mass shootings in ravines like Baby Yar claiming 33,000 in days. The air heavy with gunpowder and earth freshly turned. A horror you sanction from afar yet never witness. Absurd tidbit revealing detachment you adore your dog Blondie, walking her in manicured gardens, yet authorize the extermination of millions deemed subhuman. The hypocrisy fueling your isolation as reports of atrocities filter through, debated historically as your direct orders or bureaucratic momentum run amok. Modern comparison chills like a CEO outsourcing dirty work to distant subsidiaries, ignoring ethical fallout while touting corporate purity. Your fear peaks in the realization that victory's price is a soul-deep stain. The strange image lingers a frozen Stalingrad street. Corpses piled like cordwood under a pale moon, the chill wind carrying whispers of defeat that echo in your sleepless nights. Mood shifting from adrenaline's grip to a reflective unease. Curiosity pulling toward the betrayals and breakdowns that await in the gathering darkness ahead. Question invites reflection. If you saw your empire cracking like this ice, would you cling to denial with sarcastic defiance, or seek empathy's thaw before it's too late? You plunge deeper into the eastern quagmire, the year 1942, grinding onward, like the relentless churn of panzer tracks through frozen mud. Your initial Barbarossa blitz now a frozen nightmare where victories curdle into attrition, the vast Soviet expanse swallowing men and machines with indifferent hunger. The air in your Berlin headquarters thickens with the stale residue of endless meetings, a blend of cigar ash and polished leather masking the faint, imagined whiff of distant crematoria smoke drifting from the occupied territories, a sensory harbinger of the horrors you're unleashing. The loneliness spreading, mutating from personal chill into a vast, echoing void, filled with the ghosts of policies you sanction, but rarely witness. You're no longer the triumphant invader surveying endless steppes. The discomfort from Stalingrad's encirclement has evolved into a crisis of fear, where every telegram bears tidings of encirclement and starvation. The recurring motifs of fading torchlight now fully eclipsed by the pall of industrial death, where filth symbolizes not just battlefield grime, but the moral abyss of systematic erasure. Sensory immersion pulls you into the shadows, the distant rumble of deportation trains clattering across Europe, their iron wheels grinding like accusations against the rails, carrying whispers of despair that echo in your fitful sleep. You oversee the Holocaust's secrecy from afar, the final solution formalized at Wannsee in January, where bureaucrats in crisp suits discuss quotas and logistics over coffee, the room's polished wood scent clashing with the absurdity of turning murder into memos, ironic detachment sharpening as you. The failed artist who once sketched heroic scenes now paints a continent in shades of extermination, your regime looting masterpieces from Jewish collectors while destroying cultures wholesale. Absurd tidbit bites deep. You adore Wagner's operas for their Germanic purity, yet order the burning of synagogues and libraries, over 100,000 books torched in one Berlin bonfire alone, the acrid smoke rising like a perverse incense to your twisted ideals, sarcasm whispering through the empathy you claim to elevate art, but reduce humanity to ashes. The fear crisis heightens with each report from the Einsatzgruppen. Mobile killing squads trailing your armies, executing Jews, Roma, and Slavs in ravines like Babi Yar, where the earth trembles under volleys of gunfire, the metallic tang of blood mixing with freshly turned soil that clings to boots like guilt. Visuals zoom out poetic endless forests parting to reveal pits filled with twisted limbs, the pale light of dawn filtering through leaves like a mocking veil over the despair. Motifs of filth mutating into the blood-soaked mud that symbolizes redemption's impossibility, where every grave dug deepens your own spiritual burial. You distance yourself, claiming ignorance in private rants. But the discomfort peaks in sensory struggle. Phantom smells of gunpowder and decay haunting your meals, your vegetarian plates tasting bland against the famine you're engineering in ghettos like Warsaw, where over 400,000 Jews cram into squalid blocks reeking of sewage and starvation, their resilience a quiet underdog defiance amid typhus and terror. Historical uncertainty clouds the narrative. Did you directly orchestrate every detail of the genocide, as some argue your speeches and orders prove, or was it a bureaucratic momentum you unleashed but couldn't fully control, a debate raging among scholars who pore over Vancy minutes for hints of your shadow? Modern parallel chills the bone like a corporate executive greenlighting offshore sweatshops for profit, ignoring reports of abuse while touting efficiency. Your detachment breeds a paranoia that isolates you further. Empathy emerging for the victims' underdog stories, partisans in forests ambushing convoys, their campfires flickering like defiant torches in the night. A mutated motif of light symbolizing hope's stubborn glow amid your engineered darkness. You accelerate the machinery, death camps like Auschwitz rising in Polish fog, their barbed wire perimeters humming with electric menace, the air heavy with the chemical bite of Zyklon B, and the ceaseless churn of crematoria belching smoke that blackens the sky. Sensory overload assaults the clank of cattle car doors slamming shut on platforms, the muffled sobs inside blending with the hiss of gas valves, textures of shaved hair piling like macabre snow, gold teeth extracted with pliers that gleam coldly under harsh lights, visual cinematic endless rows of barracks stretching into mist-shrouded horizons, skeletal figures shuffling in striped uniforms, the zoom-out poetic revealing chimneys as grim sentinels piercing the clouds, where motifs of fading light dissolve into perpetual twilight. Filth, now a symbol of systemic despair where bodies become fuel, empathy surging for the underdogs who resist uprisings in Sobibor and Treblinka, prisoners blowing up crematoria with smuggled explosives, their blasts echoing like thunderclaps of reclaimed humanity. The ironic commentary cuts through you, who fear doctors and decay, engineer an industrial hygiene of death, sterilizing Europe of undesirables, while your own body betrays you with tremors and addictions. Absurd tidbit underscoring the madness you ban tobacco for public health, yet chain smoke in private, your ashtrays overflowing like miniature graves. The fear crisis peaks in this duality, a psychological chill where detachment crumbles under the weight of complicity, sarcasm offering bitter relief. How fitting that your master race blueprint erases millions, while you're in a circle Goebbels spinning propaganda. Himmler administrating terror begins to fracture with whispers of doubt. Empathy whispers louder for the victims. Their hidden diaries and smuggled letters are testament to resilience, like civil rights activists in segregated America, enduring lynchings yet marching onward. Their underdog spirit a parallel that humanizes the horror without diminishing it. Shocking element twists the knife as your front stool. You intensify deportations, trains rolling relentlessly even as supplies dwindle for your troops. The absurdity of prioritizing genocide over military logic, revealing the ideological rot at your core. Historical debate intensifies. Was the Holocaust a distraction from war failures, or the war merely a means to its end, as evidenced by resources diverted to camps amid Stalingrad's siege? Modern aside draws parallels like a regime today, funneling funds to border walls while ignoring domestic crises. Your priorities expose the fear-driven absurdity. Empathy, bridging the gap to the underdogs starved in ghettos, their underground schools and secret orchestras defying the darkness with flickers of cultural light. The strange image chills a lone train vanishing into Polish fog, its cargo of souls bound for gas chambers disguised as showers. The mood shifting from adrenaline's tense grip to a reflective unease, curiosity stirring toward the betrayals that will unravel your circle next, a gentle unwind where sarcasm tempers the horror, empathy softens the edge, and the spreading loneliness hints at your own impending void. Ironic question invites reflection. If you built an empire on such fragile hatred, would you see the sarcasm in its collapse, or double down in denial until the end? You huddle in the dim confines of the Wolf's Lair, your East Prussian headquarters shrouded in pine forests that once offered seclusion, but now feel like encroaching walls. The year 1944 boiling toward its feverish midpoint on July 20th, where the air hangs thick with the residue of strategy sessions, stale coffee mingled with the sharp ozone of tension, papers rustling like dry leaves under your unsteady hands. The loneliness spreading has swollen into a suffocating presence. No longer a whisper, but a roar that drowns out the birdsong filtering through camouflaged bunkers, mutating from the distant chill of Stalingrad's whispers into this immediate, visceral paranoia that grips your throat like invisible fingers. You're no longer the distant overseer of death camps. The discomfort from those sanitized reports has erupted into a full-blown crisis. Fear spiking as trusted aides eye you with veiled suspicion. The motifs of fading torchlight now collapsing into the harsh glare of interrogation lamps that expose every crack in your facade, symbolizing the despair that turns inward, devouring the light of your once unquestioned command. The multi-twist explodes in a flash of heat and noise. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, that aristocratic officer with his polished demeanor and hidden bomb, plants the device in your briefing room during a midday map session, the leather briefcase ticking silently beneath the heavy oak table that maps out your crumbling fronts. Sensory immersion assaults you, the sudden boom reverberating through your bones like a thunderclap in a confined storm. The acrid sting of explosives scorching your nostrils, shards of wood and metal whistling past as the room erupts in chaos, blood splattering the walls like abstract strokes on a ruined canvas. You survive, ears ringing with the echo of Tieng Ket Thuk spreading, your uniform singed but body mostly intact, irony detaching with sarcastic bite that sturdy table leg. A mere accident of placement saves you from the blast that kills 4 others, yet in your rage, you order the execution of nearly 5,000 suspects, turning a narrow escape into a bloodbath that dwarfs the plot itself. Absurd tidbit underscoring the madness. You, who once sketched knights in heroic poses, now doodle death warrants with a trembling hand, your iron will fracturing under the weight of survival's curse. Visual zoom out. Poetic, the Wolf's Lair's compound sprawls like a wounded beast amid the trees, smoke billowing from the shattered hut as guards swarm like ants over a disturbed hill. The forest canopy filtering sunlight into dappled patterns that mock the darkness settling in your soul. Motifs of light now fully inverted into the flickering emergency bulbs that cast elongated shadows, symbolizing redemption's utter eclipse amid self-inflicted ruin. The fear crisis peaks, a whirlwind of paranoia where every face seems a mask of treason. Clever commentary slipping in with sarcasm, you decry the plotters as cowards. Yet your own dentist phobia leaves you wincing at minor pains while you inflict agony on thousands. The hypocrisy a bitter pill that lodges in your throat amid the post-blast haze. Historical uncertainty fuels the debate: was the July plot a noble bid for justice by disillusioned elites, or a belated betrayal by opportunists sensing your downfall? As some argue, the resistance's delay allowed your crimes to multiply unchecked. Modern parallel chills the air like a whistleblower in a corrupt corporation leaking secrets to oust a toxic CEO, only to face brutal retaliation in layoffs and lawsuits. Your response exposes the fear-driven machinery that sustains power. Empathy emerging for the plotters, men like Stauffenberg, driven by conscience amid the filth of your regime. Their underdogs stand a fleeting spark in the gathering night, reminding you of your own trench survival, now twisted into tyranny's trap. The emotional peak crashes through. Fear crisis. Heightening with ironic detachment, you parade your survival as proof of destiny, broadcasting defiance while privately quaking, ordering purges that thin your circle, further generals executed by piano wire. Their agonized gasps a soundtrack to your isolation, sarcasm offering grim relief as you mock their weakness, while your own hands shake from undisclosed ailments. Empathy tugs insistently for the underdogs caught in the web, innocent families rounded up in reprisals, their screams echoing the ghetto uprisings you crush without mercy. A dual perspective where you glimpse the humanity in your enemies even as you deny it in yourself. Shocking element twists the narrative amid the purge. You uncover Hess's earlier bizarre flight to Scotland in 1941, that loyal deputy's quixotic peace bid, now retroactively branded treason. Absurd tidbit revealing the absurdity he parachuted into enemy territory like a misguided artist leaping canvases, only to languish in British captivity. His act a harbinger of the defections that will plague your final days. Sensory details intensify the chill, the metallic clink of manacles on arrested officers, the musty scent of interrogation cells damp with sweat and fear. Visual flashes of nooses swaying in courtyards under overcast skies, the zoom-out poetic capturing Berlin's spires, piercing fog like accusatory fingers, motifs of filth, now the blood-stained execution yards, symbolizing the deeper despair of a regime devouring its own. The strange image haunts your bandaged form, staring into a cracked mirror, the reflection fractured like your trust, mood shifting from adrenaline's frantic pulse to a reflective unease, curiosity gnawing toward the Eastern betrayals that will unravel everything next. Ironic question invites reflection. If destiny spared you only to heighten your fall, would you laugh at the cosmic joke, or rage against the mirror's truth? You reel from the wolf's lair, explosions, aftershocks, the year 1942, dragging into its brutal winter close. Your survival a Pyrrhic victory that only amplifies the unravelling on the Eastern Front, where Stalingrad transforms from a symbolic prize into a frozen mausoleum for your ambitions. The air in your Rastenburg headquarters carries the lingering acrid bite of explosives long after the debris is cleared, but it's the telegrams from the Volga that sting sharper, their terse words crackling like frost on paper, detailing the encirclement of Paulus's Sixth Army in a city reduced to rubble and ice. You're no longer the defiant survivor brushing off assassination. The fear from that near death has metastasized into a crisis of command, where every map unfurled reveals the eastern vastness, not as Lebensraum, but as a devouring maw. Motifs of flickering light now utterly extinguished in the perpetual gloom of Soviet winters, mutating from signals of hope into the pale glow of starvation's delirium, symbolizing the deeper despair where your iron orders forge chains of doom for those who follow. Sensory immersion engulfs you in the horror, the imagined bite of sub-zero winds slicing through inadequate greatcoats, numbing fingers to useless stumps as soldiers huddle in bombed-out basements. The air thick with the fetid reek of gangrene and unwashed desperation, textures of frost-rimed rifles slipping from grasp like elusive victories. You refuse retreat. Your no-surrender decree a death sentence disguised as valor. Ironic detachment sharpening with sarcasm you, who once charged through gas clouds in the Great War's trenches, now condemn 300,000 to a slower hell, promising air resupply like a hollow mantra while Goering's Luftwaffe falters in blizzards, dropping meagre crates that scatter like confetti over snow-blanketed ruins. Absurd tidbit underscoring the farce, your vaunted lightning war, bogged down in a siege where promises evaporate faster than breath in the cold. Over 90,000 tons of supplies pledged but only a fraction delivered, turning aerial lifelines into cruel mirages. Visual zoom-out poetic. The Volga's icy expanse glitters under a merciless moon. The city's skeletal factories and shattered streets a labyrinth of red-stained snow, where huddled figures move like phantoms amid the debris, motifs of bloodied rubble now symbolizing the irreversible bleed-out of your empire, where filth mutates into a frozen tableau of human wreckage, despair etched in every frostbitten face. The emotional peak surges, fear crisis, heightening with clever commentary laced in sarcasm. You mock the Soviets as subhuman, yet watch your superior troops reduced to cannibalism, whispers and suicide pacts. The hypocrisy a bitter frost that coats your tongue during sleepless strategy sessions, where aides' averted eyes reflect your own crumbling facade. Historical debate rages in hindsight was Stalingrad's catastrophe, born of your ideological obsession with the city named for your arch-nemesis, or a fatal underestimation of Soviet resilience. As some argue, your no-retreat policy echoed Napoleon's hubris, dooming an army that could have withdrawn to fight another day. Modern parallel draws a chilling line like a stubborn executive ignoring board pleas to pivot during a market crash, clinging to a failing product line while employees starve on cutbacks. Your detachment breeds a paranoia that isolates you. Empathy emerging for the underdogs trapped in the cauldron German privates, scribbling final letters home, their ink freezing on paper, mirroring the frozen hopes of American workers during the Dust Bowl, enduring blizzards of despair yet clinging to survival's thread. The multi-twist layers as encirclement tightens, Paulus begs for permission to break out, but you deny it, promoting him to field marshal in a cynical ploy knowing no German of that rank has surrendered. Yet he capitulates in February 1943, the white flag a stark visual against the bloodied snow. 91,000 survivors marching into captivity like ghosts, their emaciated forms shuffling through drifts that swallow footprints like forgotten promises. Shocking element twists deeper amid the siege. You divert trains from resupply to deportation duties, prioritizing Holocaust transports over your starving troops, absurd tidbit revealing the madness. Over 1.5 million Jews murdered that year alone, while your army gnaws on boot leather. The irony of racial purity starving your own master race. A sardonic punch that echoes in your raging outbursts. Sensory overload peaks in the reports, the crunch of snow under boots turning to slush mixed with viscera. The faint moans of the dying carried on Arctic winds that howl like accusations. Textures of frozen bandages cracking against gangrenous wounds, where every breath is a laboured gasp amid the stench of death's harvest. Visual cinematic bombed avenues choked with debris, where snipers perch in ruined spires like vultures, the zoom-out poetic capturing the Volga's frozen ribbon winding through the carnage like a vein drained dry. Motifs of red blood now frozen into crystalline patterns, symbolizing the petrified despair where ambition crystallizes into catastrophe. The fear crisis overwhelms, ironic detachment offering fleeting relief. You, who survived mustard gas blindness in 1918, now blind yourself to the obvious. Sacking generals who urge flexibility, their replacements nodding in sycophantic agreement while the front crumbles. Empathy surges for the encircled underdogs. Paulus's men reduced to boiling wallpaper glue for sustenance. Their resilience a tragic mirror to your own unyielding stubbornness, a quiet nod to the human spirit enduring what ideology inflicts. Twist compounds as news spreads. Stalingrad's fall shatters homefront morale, whispers of defeat filtering through censored radios. Your propaganda machine straining to spin loss as strategic repositioning sarcasm, biting as Goebbels broadcasts crackle with forced optimism. The absurdity of total war rallies where you promise miracle weapons, while factories bomb-ruined produce ghosts of armaments. Historical uncertainty lingers. Did Stalingrad mark the war's turning point due to your micromanagement? Or was it inevitable given Soviet manpower's tide, debated by tacticians who dissect your orders like autopsy findings? Modern parallel chills like a founder's refusal to pivot during a venture capital drought, watching their startup bleed talent while clinging to flawed vision. Your crisis peaks in the realization that underdog tenacity, once your strength, has become your fatal flaw. Empathy bridging to the soldier's plight, frozen letters home pleading for mercy you deny, their underdog endurance a testament to loyalty's tragic cost. The strange image chills a lone German helmet half buried in snow, its liner stained with frozen blood, the mood shifting from adrenaline's frantic thrum to a reflective hush, curiosity gnawing toward the Western invasions that will seal your fate next. Ironic question invites reflection. If your unbreakable will broke everything around you, would you mock the cosmic joke? Or finally empathize with the wreckage before the end? You pivot from Stalingrad's frozen catastrophe into the sweltering uncertainties of 1943, the Eastern Front's hemorrhaging losses, now a distant thunder echoing in your war rooms, where the air hangs heavy with the musty scent of yellowed maps and the faint, acrid whiff of your own unwashed urgency. Sweat beading on your brow as aides shuffle papers under dim bulbs that flicker like failing resolve. The loneliness spreading has bloated into a monstrous companion, no longer confined to personal whispers but sprawling across continents, mutating from the bloodied snows of Russia into the salty spray of western shores, where motifs of crashing waves symbolize the tidal despair washing away your illusions of invincibility. Light's remnants now, the pale dawn breaking over beaches that will soon run red. You're no longer the detached overseer of Holocaust transports. The fear from Paulus's surrender has ignited a full-blown crisis. Paranoia gnawing at your edges like the relentless tide eroding cliffs. Every intelligence report a wave crashing against your fragile defenses. The multi-twist surges with Pearl Harbor's distant echoes in December 1941. Japan's surprise attack pulling America into the fray. But your declaration of war on the United States days later, a knee-jerk solidarity with your Axis ally, proves a self-inflicted wound that festers, ironic detachment sharpening with sarcasm you, who once mocked Roosevelt's decadent democracy. Now invite the world's industrial giant to crush you, your master race rhetoric absurd against the backdrop of American factories churning out tanks and planes like endless assembly lines of retribution. Sensory immersion crashes over you, the imagined roar of Pacific waves mingling with the crackle of transatlantic radio static, the metallic taste of regret on your tongue as you sign the decree, textures of crisp parchment under your fingers feeling like the noose tightening around your strategic neck. Visual zoom out, poetic, the Atlantic's vast expanse glitters under moonlight, U-boats lurking like shadows beneath. But their torpedoes increasingly miss as Allied convoys adapt. Motifs of submerged filth, now symbolizing the deeper despair where your naval dreams drown in oil-slicked waters, light fading into the abyss of overextended fronts. The emotional peak royals as D-Day erupts on June 6, 1944, Allied forces storming Normandy's beaches in the largest amphibious assault history has seen. The air over the channel thick with the drone of C-47 transports and the thunder of naval guns pounding coastal batteries. You awaken to frantic calls, your bunker in Berchtesgaden vibrating with distant urgency, the fresh mountain breeze clashing with the stale fear in your quarters, where aides burst in with maps unfurled like accusations. Fear crisis heightens. A whirlwind of dread laced with clever commentary, you dismiss the landings as a feint toward Calais, clinging to misinformation from double agents. But as reports confirm the breach, sarcasm bites you, the blitzkrieg maestro. Now watch your Atlantic wall crumble like sandcastles under the tide. The absurdity of your impregnable defences exposed as paratroopers drop behind lines like nocturnal phantoms. Historical uncertainty swirls in the debate. Was D-Day's success due to Allied deception like Operation Fortitude, inflating dummy armies to fool your spies, or by your own divided command? As some argue, Rommel's pleas for mobile reserves went unheeded amid your micromanagement. Modern parallel draws a chilling thread like a cybersecurity firm ignoring breach alerts during a massive hack. Watching firewalls fail while executives dither in boardrooms. Your detachment breeds chaos. Empathy emerging for the underdogs on the beaches. American GIs wading through crimson surf, their helmets bobbing like corks in the chaos. Resilience shining amid the horror you unleashed from afar. The twist slayer relentlessly, you declare total war mobilization, conscripting teenagers and the elderly into Volkssturm militias. Their ragtag drills in Berlin parks a pathetic echo of your youth's Hitler Youth parades. Absurd tidbit revealing the desperation you arm them with Panzerfausts, while your own hands tremble from Parkinson's onset. Doctors pumping you full of amphetamines that jitter your nerves like the Allied bombs raining on Ruhr factories. Sensory overload peaks the boom of naval barrages reverberating through coastal reports. The salty brine of blood-soaked sand imagined on your lips. Textures of shredded barbed wire tangling limbs like the knots in your gut as Omaha Beach turns into a slaughter pen. Yet the Allies push inland, their tanks rumbling like avenging thunder. Visual cinematic, the Normandy coast stretches in a panorama of fire and foam. landing craft beaching amid geysers of water and shrapnel, soldiers charging up cliffs under withering machine gun fire, the zoom-out poetic capturing the channel's restless waves lapping at floating debris, motifs of crashing surf now symbolizing the irreversible tide of defeat, where filth mutates into the churned mud of foxholes, despair washing over your distant command like an unstoppable flood. The fear overwhelms, ironic detachment offering bitter relief. You, who redrew Europe's map in blood, now watch it redrawn against you, sarcasm underscoring the hubris you mock Churchill's soft underbelly, yet feel the stab in your own. Shocking element twists deeper amid the invasion chaos. You accelerate Holocaust deportations, Hungarian Jews crammed into trains bound for Auschwitz even as your defenses crack. The absurdity of prioritizing genocide over reinforcements a damning indictment of your soul's rot. Historical debate intensifies. Did your war on two fronts stem from strategic genius overextended, or ideological blindness that ignored the Anglo-American alliance's industrial might? Modern aside chills like a leader today, escalating culture wars while ignoring economic collapse, watching their base erode amid ignored warnings. Your crisis peaks in the realization that underdog tenacity has become a trap, empathy bridging to the Allied soldiers' underdog storming beaches with grit echoing your trench days, their victory a testament to collective strength over solitary delusion. The strange image chills a bloodied Allied helmet washed ashore, half buried in sand like a relic of your crumbling wall, the mood shifting from adrenaline's frantic surge to a reflective hush, curiosity gnawing toward the inner betrayals that will seal your isolation next. Ironic question invites reflection. If your unbreakable defenses broke so easily, would you see the sarcasm in your fortress Europe, or blame the waves for rising? You claw through the sleepless haze of 1944's waning months. The Western invasion's tidal crash now a relentless drumbeat echoing in your fortified retreats. The year bleeding into early 1945, where your once unshakable frame betrays you with subtle tremors that snake through your limbs like cracks in a crumbling facade. The air in the Führer bunker beneath Berlin's Reich Chancellery clings damp and musty, a stale cocktail of concrete sweat and recycled breaths that seeps into your pores. The loneliness spreading, mutating from the vast eastern voids into this subterranean tomb's suffocating intimacy, where motifs of flickering emergency lights now symbolize the despair of a life flickering toward extinction, their pale glow casting elongated shadows that dance like mocking spectres on the walls. You're no longer the distant commander dismissing beachhead reports. The fear from D-Day's breach has crystallized into a personal crisis. Paranoia gnawing at your nerves like the unseen rats scurrying in the vents. Every cough or twitch a harbinger of the body's rebellion against the mind that once commanded empires. Sensory immersion submerges you in the decline, the constant hum of generators vibrating through the floors like a mechanical heartbeat too erratic to trust. The chill seeping from the raw cement despite heaters' feeble warmth. Textures of rough wool blankets scratching against your skin as you hunch over desks. Your hands, once steady and sketching grand visions, now quivering uncontrollably. The Parkinson's symptoms your doctors mask with euphemisms and injections. You pace narrow corridors, the air growing thicker with the odor of unwashed uniforms and canned rations. A sensory struggle where the metallic bite of amphetamines lingers on your tongue. Their rush battling the fog of barbiturates that cloud your thoughts, leaving you trapped in a pharmacological prison of your own design. Visual zoom-out poetic, the bunker's labyrinthine halls stretch like veins in a buried corpse. Dim bulbs illuminating maps pocked with retreating pins. The recurring filth now mutating into the grime of sweat-streaked walls, symbolizing redemption's utter abandonment, where despair pools in every corner like stagnant water reflecting your hollowed gaze. The emotional peak teeters on crisis. Fear crisis. Heightening with clever commentary laced in sarcasm you. The health-obsessed vegetarian preaching Aryan vitality, now a rattling shell propped by a cocktail of drugs over 80 different medications documented in your physician's logs, from cocaine eye drops to methamphetamine pills that jitter your speech like a malfunctioning radio. Absurd tidbit underscores the hypocrisy you test cyanide capsules on your loyal dog, Blondie, in the bunker's gloom, watching her convulse with a detached curiosity, ensuring the poison's potency for your own end ironic. Isn't it? The man who adored animals enough to ban vivisection for science, now sacrifices his pet in a twisted loyalty ritual. Sarcasm biting as you stroke her fur one last time. The warmth fading from her body, mirroring the chill settling in your soul. Empathy emerging fleetingly for the innocent creature caught in your web of self-destruction. Historical debate swirls in the shadows was your deteriorating health, evident in trembling hands and slurred commands a result of wartime stress, or exacerbated by Morell's quack treatments. As some argue, the doctor injected animal hormones and strychnine under the guise of vitamins, turning your body into experimental canvas of decline. Modern parallel draws a chilling breath like a high-profile leader during America's Great Depression, masking breakdowns with stimulants while the nation starves. Your own physical unravelling reflects the Empire's collapse, empathy bridging to the underdogs in your circle, Eva Braun's quiet companionship, a rare warmth amid the cold, her presence a gentle reminder of human connection you squander in isolation. The twists compound in rapid succession. Your hands, once firm on the reins of power, now betray you with involuntary shakes during briefings, aides averting eyes as you struggle to sign orders for scorched earth retreats that raise your own lands. The absurdity of commanding total destruction, while your body self-destructs a sardonic parallel that fuels your rages. Sensory overload intensifies the constant drip of condensation from bunker ceilings like tears unshed. The metallic clank of guards' boots echoing your erratic heartbeat. Textures of crumpled telegrams under your palms, feeling like the fragile paper of your crumbling resolve. Visual cinematic, your reflection in a tarnished mirror, face gaunt and eyes wild under harsh bulb light. The zoom-out poetic, capturing the bunker's cramped war room where maps curl at edges like dying leaves. Motifs of submerged filth, now the pooling water from leaks symbolizing the flooding despair that no dam of denial can hold back. Fear overwhelms in waves. Ironic detachment offering bitter respite, you rant about Allied barbarism, while your SS unleashes death marches from camps. Prisoners staggering through snow with frostbitten feet, their chains clinking like accusations against your name. Sarcasm whispering that the superior race's leader cowers underground like a rat in a trap of his own making. Empathy surges for the underdogs enduring your final cruelties, camp survivors, whispering defiance in Yiddish amid the marches. Their resilience a quiet flame in the gathering night, much like Depression-era hobos trekking American rails, clinging to hope amid destitution. Shocking element twists the knife as bombs fall above. You marry Eva in a hurried ceremony on April 29th, the bunker's chapel dim with candlelight that flickers like your fading pulse. The absurdity of vowing eternal love amid apocalypse a sardonic footnote to your life of hate, her ring slipping onto a finger swollen from drugs. Historical debate lingers. Did your final act stem from genuine affection or calculated theatre? As some argue, the marriage sanitized your image for posterity amid the ruins. Modern aside chills like a celebrity wedding staged during a scandal storm, broadcasting unity while the world burns. Your crisis peaks in the realization that even love bends to your delusion. Empathy softening the edge for Eva's quiet devotion, a human anchor in your storm-tossed sea. The strange image chills your trembling hand clutching a cyanide ampule. Blondie's empty collar dangling nearby, the mood shifting from adrenaline's frantic ebb to a reflective pause. Curiosity stirring toward the ultimate betrayals that will seal your end. Ironic question invites reflection. If love and loyalty crumble in such absurdity, would you see the sarcasm in your eternal Reich, or cling to the illusion until the final breath? You grapple with the encroaching shadows of 1945's early months. The bunker's dim corridors now a labyrinth of echoes, where the distant thuds of artillery seep through the concrete like muffled heartbeats. The year unravelling toward its apocalyptic close as your inner circle, once a fortress of sycophantic steel, begins to fracture under the weight of inevitable defeat. The air down here thickens with a cloying mix of generator exhaust and human desperation. A stale fog that coats your tongue and blurs the edges of your vision, the loneliness spreading, mutating from the vast eastern voids into this intimate betrayal sting, where motifs of flickering bulbs now symbolize the despair of loyalties sputtering out. their erratic light casting grotesque silhouettes on walls that seem to close in with each passing hour. You're no longer the defiant survivor dismissing D-Day's waves. The fear from Stalingrad's ghost has coalesced into a paranoia that pulses through your veins like the amphetamines your doctors inject. Every whisper in the hall's a potential dagger, the discomfort a ceaseless throb that no decree can silence. Sensory immersion traps you in the decline, the constant drip-drip of condensation from overhead pipes pooling on the floor like unshed tears. The chill seeping through layers of wool despite the heater's feeble hum. Textures of crumpled intelligence reports slick with your sweaty palms as you pore over them in lamplight that dances mockingly. You sense the shifts first in subtle glances, Himmler. That meticulous fanatic with his wire-rimmed glasses and quiet zeal begins secretive negotiations with the Western Allies through Swedish intermediaries, offering to trade Jewish lives for peace terms. His betrayal a slow poison that reaches your ears in April, the news hitting like a delayed explosion from the July plot. Ironic detachment sharpens with sarcasm the architect of your racial purity machine, now bargaining with the inferior to save his skin, absurd tidbit, underscoring the hypocrisy. Himmler amassing a personal empire of SS enterprises built on slave labor, raking in millions from looted gold and forced factories, yet fleeing like a rat when the ship's hull cracks. His loyalty a facade thinner than the paper on which he drafts surrender feelers. Visual zoom-out poetic. The bunker's map room sprawls like a dimly lit crypt, pins retreating across Europe like blood droplets receding from a wound. The flickering candlelight on Göring's morphine-glazed face, casting elongated shadows that twist like the swastika's arms. Motifs of betrayal, now mutating into the flickering doubt in every aide's eyes, where filth symbolizes the moral grime coating your crumbling court. Despair pooling in the unspoken accusations that hang heavier than the dust-laden air. The emotional peak teeters on betrayal's blade. Fear crisis heightening with clever commentary. Laced in sarcasm, you strip Himmler of titles, ordering his arrest with a voice that cracks like the foundations above. Yet sarcasm bites as you realize your Reichsführer SS was never truly yours. His quiet fanaticism always served his own occult dreams more than your vision. The absurdity of his pseudoscientific expeditions to Tibet for Aryan origins, now a sardonic footnote to his cowardly outreach. Göring follows suit, that once flamboyant ace now a bloated shadow of excess. His telegram from Berchtesgaden offering to assume leadership if you're incapacitated arrives like a slap. The paper's crisp fold belying the treachery within. You rage in the dim light, the air vibrating with your shouts that echo off reinforced walls. Sensory struggle peaking as the metallic taste of blood fills your mouth from bitten lips. The textures of his opulent medals, once pinned with pride, now symbols of gluttony. His morphine addiction, a mirror to your own chemical crutches that jitter your nerves without mercy. Absurd tidbit chills Göring, hoarder of stolen art worth billions in today's terms. Promises total war, while lounging in silk robes amid pilfered Rembrandts. His betrayal a punchline to the Empire's farce, you expel him too, branding him traitor. Yet the sarcasm underscores your isolation, your heir apparent, reduced to a fugitive scrambling for Allied mercy. Historical debate swirls in the haze where these betrayals deserved retribution for your tyrannical grip, or opportunistic leaps from a sinking ship. As some argue, the Circle's fractures stemmed from your micromanagement that stifled initiative, turning loyalists into resentful schemers. Modern parallel draws a chilling veil like executives jumping from a failing conglomerate during America's Great Depression, abandoning the founder amid stock crashes while pocketing golden parachutes. Your crisis peaks in the realization that power's allure fades with fortune. Empathy emerging for the underdogs in your crumbling court, Eva's steadfast gaze a rare anchor amid the storm, her quiet presence a gentle counter to the venomous departures, reminding you of loyalties untarnished by ambition. The twists layer in rapid, bitter succession as artillery draws nearer. The Tiangrungukoikung spreading of distant shells lulls you into fitful reveries where dreams of victory dissolve into nightmares of encirclement. The bunker's flickering screens showing fronts collapsing like dominoes. You order scorched earth policies, raising your own lands in retreat. The air above ground thick with the smoke of burning villages that mirrors the moral incineration within your circle. Absurd tidbit revealing the depths you cling to wonder weapons like the V2 rocket. Their trails streaking skies like futile fireworks. Over 3,000 launched, but killing more slave laborers in production than enemies on impact, a sardonic testament to your regime's self-devouring efficiency. Sensory overload balances the horror, the constant boom vibrating through Earth like a dirge, the chill of betrayal seeping colder than the bunker's drafts, textures of betrayal letters crumpled in your fist like the fragile alliances they represent. Visual cinematic, the war room's dim glow, illuminating faces twisted in forced smiles. Zoom out poetic to Berlin's skyline punctured by searchlights that probe the night like accusing fingers. Motifs of flickering doubt now fully embodied in the wavering loyalties around you, where despair pools in the unspoken voids between words. Empathy softens the sarcasm's bite. A gentle nod to your own underdog origins now buried under layers of treachery. The crisis a mirror to the isolation you've cultivated, loyalty demanded but never reciprocated, leaving you adrift in a sea of sycophants turned survivors. The resolution whispers in the wind down as the circle shrinks. Reflect on the lessons etched in these fractures, where power's price is paid in solitude's currency, easing into a hush that balances the horror with empathy's grace. Curiosity lingering on the final acts that will seal your fate. The strange image chills a half-burned telegram fluttering in the bunker's draft, its words of surrender smudged like erased promises, the mood shifting from betrayal's frantic sting to a reflective calm, setting up the ultimate self-betrayal ahead. Ironic question invites reflection. If your most loyal turned when the end neared, would you blame them with sarcastic fury, or empathize with the mirror they hold to your own crumbling soul? You stagger through the encroaching twilight of early 1945, the bunker's oppressive confines now a microcosm of the Reich's terminal decay, where the distant artillery booms have evolved from sporadic warnings into a ceaseless symphony that rattles the foundations like the labored breaths of a dying giant. The air down here, once merely stale, now chokes with the acrid fusion of generator fumes and the faint, insidious seep of groundwater through cracked concrete. A dampness that clings to your clothes like the persistent grip of regret, the loneliness spreading, mutating from the betrayals of Himmler and Göring into this all-encompassing void that presses against your chest with every inhale. You're no longer the raging figure purging plotters. The fear from those executions has congealed into a paralyzing dread. Paranoia weaving through your thoughts like the water droplets tracing erratic paths down the walls. Every echo in the corridors a potential harbinger of the end. Motifs of flickering doubt now fully extinguished in the perpetual half-light of emergency bulbs that buzz like insects trapped in amber, symbolizing the despair where even shadows seem to abandon you, leaving only the cold embrace of isolation. Sensory immersion submerges you in the decline's depths, the constant vibration of impacts above translating into a low hum that resonates in your bones, the chill seeping through layers despite the feeble warmth of electric heaters, textures of damp maps curling at edges under your fingertips as you trace retreating lines that snake westward like wounds reopening. Berlin above is a cauldron of chaos, the Red Army encircling the city by mid-April, their tanks grinding through suburbs with the relentless crunch of rubble under treads, the air thick with the smoke of burning archives and homes, a pungent blend of charred wood and gunpowder that filters down through ventilation shafts, making each breath a reminder of the fires you've ignited now consuming your capital. You issue frantic orders for total resistance, conscripting the remnants of the Hitler Youth and Volkssturm elderly men and boys, barely in their teens, arming them with Panzerfausts and rifles that feel comically oversized in their small hands. Absurd tidbit underscoring the farce you, who once paraded these youths in torchlit spectacles of purity. Now send them to man barricades of overturned trolleys and sandbags, their fresh faces smeared with grime, as they face Soviet T-34s rumbling like avenging behemoths through the streets. Visual zoom out poetic, the city's skyline fractures under shell fire. Spires of the Brandenburg Gate silhouetted against orange flames that lick the horizon like a funeral pyre for your dreams. Motifs of crashing waves from D-Day, now mutating into the tidal surge of Red Army infantry pouring through breaches, where filth symbolizes the blood-soaked avenues turning to crimson mud under ceaseless rain. despair pooling in craters that fill with the detritus of a crumbling civilization. The emotional peak teeters on the brink. Fear crisis heightening with clever commentary. Laced in sarcasm, you decry the Soviets as barbarian hordes, while your own scorched earth commands raze Berlin's suburbs, ordering the flooding of subways to drown advancing troops, yet trapping your own civilians in watery tombs. The irony of your defensive genius flooding your capital, a sardonic twist that bites like the cold water rising in those tunnels. The twists cascade in relentless waves as the encirclement tightens. You learn of death marches from the camps, prisoners' skeletal remnants of your racial purification herded westward through snow-slashed landscapes, their chains clinking faintly amid the shuffle of frostbitten feet, guards shooting stragglers with casual indifference, the air along those routes heavy with the metallic tang of blood and the fetid odour of dysentery. Absurd tidbit chills the bone you, who once sketched idyllic Germanic landscapes. Now orchestrate these forced exoduses that litter roads with corpses like discarded drawings. Over 250,000 perishing in the marches alone. A final spasm of cruelty that sucks the last vestiges of humanity from your regime. Sarcasm whispering that your evacuations are merely murder by another name. Empathy surging for the underdogs staggering onward. Their whispered prayers in Yiddish or Polish a defiant melody amid the horror. Much like runaway slaves in America's antebellum South, enduring forced marches through swamps, clinging to freedom's distant light. Historical debate swirls in the smoke. Were these marches a desperate bid to erase evidence before Allied liberation, or a calculated extension of genocide? As some argue, your orders prioritize destruction over any military logic, diverting resources from the front to prolong suffering. Modern parallel draws a chilling veil like authorities today displacing refugees in border crises, herding them through deserts with callous disregard while claiming security. Your crisis peaks in the realization that underdog tenacity has devolved into sadistic prolongation, empathy bridging to the marcher's resilience, hidden acts of sabotage, shared scraps of bread, fleeting moments of song that pierce the despair like faint torchlight in a blackout. Sensory overload intensifies the decline, the bunker's walls shudder with each impact, dust sifting from ceilings like fine snow, the chill deepening as fuel rations dwindle. Textures of Eva's hand in yours a rare warmth amid the cold steel of pistols you distribute for last stands. You marry her on April 29th in a hurried rite, the chapel's air thick with the scent of wilted flowers and candle wax, her ring slipping onto your finger with a metallic click that echoes like a lock sealing your fate ironic. Isn't it you who criminalized mixed unions? Now seek solace in this private vow amid public collapse. The absurdity of romantic normalcy in apocalypse a sardonic balm for your fraying nerves. The Berlin Fall accelerates. Street by street combat turning the city into a labyrinth of rubble, where Hitler youth boys, barely teens, clutch anti-tank weapons with trembling hands, their faces smeared with soot and determination, facing Soviet tanks that belch fire like dragons from forgotten sketches, visual cinematic avenues choked with debris, snipers perched in shattered windows like vultures, the zoom-out poetic capturing the Spree River running dark with ashen blood, motifs of tidal waves, now the surge of Red Army infantry flooding breaches, where filth mutates into the pervasive grime coating everything, symbolizing the irredeemable despair of a city devouring itself. Fear overwhelms in torrents. Ironic detachment offering fleeting relief, you broadcast total victory, while civilians huddle in cellars, their sobs mingling with the wine of incoming shells, sarcasm biting as you blame traitors for the collapse. Yet your own betrayals, abandoning the people to fight alone, expose the hollow core of your cult. Empathy surges for the underdogs in the ruins, women forming bucket brigades amid fires, children scavenging in craters, their resilience a quiet rebuke to your delusion. Like Dust Bowl families in America banding together against storms that stripped their lands bare. Shocking element twists the narrative as the noose tightens. You order the destruction of infrastructure, flooding mines and blowing bridges, ensuring post-war Germany inherits nothing but scorched earth, absurd tidbit revealing the nihilism. You, who promised a 1,000-year Reich, now orchestrate its funeral pyre. The irony of self-sabotage a sardonic climax to your underdog saga. Historical debate intensifies. Was this scorched earth policy a strategic denial of assets, or vengeful spite? As some argue, it stemmed from your "if I fall, Germany falls" mentality, dooming civilians to greater suffering. Modern aside chills like an ousted leader salting the earth in corporate takeovers, ensuring successors inherit ruins. Your crisis resolves in bitter acceptance that power's end is not glory but oblivion. The strange image chills a child's doll half buried in rubble, its glass eyes staring blankly at the smoke-filled sky, the mood shifting from frantic despair to a reflective hush, curiosity lingering on the final self-betrayal that awaits. Ironic question invites reflection. If your empire's fall mirrors your own scorched soul, would you laugh at the poetic justice, or rage against the ruins you wrought? You teeter on the precipice of oblivion in those final hours of April 30th, 1945. The Führer bunker's dim recess is now a suffocating cocoon, where the air hangs stagnant and heavy, laced with the acrid residue of gun oil, burnt paper, and the faint metallic tang of impending finality that clings to your palate like a bitter aftertaste you can't swallow away. The loneliness spreading reaches its zenith, no longer a creeping fog but an all-consuming storm that rages within, mutating from the distant betrayals of your circle into this intimate apocalypse, where motifs of flickering emergency lights sputter like the last gasps of a dying star, symbolizing the despair that has finally eclipsed every shred of your fabricated grandeur, leaving only the hollow echo of a life spent chasing shadows. You're no longer the raging commander ordering phantom counterattacks. The fear from Berlin's encirclement has solidified into a paralyzing acceptance, paranoia dissolving into a numb resignation as the Soviet artillery's thunder vibrates through the earth above, each boom a punctuation mark on the sentence of your reign, the discomfort a ceaseless ache that no amount of methamphetamine can dull anymore. Sensory immersion envelops you in the endgame, the cool steel of the Walther PPK pistol pressing against your temple, its weight a tangible anchor in the swirling chaos of your thoughts, the faint, oily scent rising from the barrel mingling with the musty dampness that permeates every corner, droplets of condensation tracing slow paths down the walls like tears for the unwept millions. You dictate your final testament in the early hours, your voice hoarse and trembling, the scratch of the secretary's pen on paper, a rhythmic counterpoint to the distant explosions, words pouring out in a torrent of blame Jews, traitors, weak-willed generals, all scapegoats for the empire you've crumbled with your own hands. Ironic detachment flickers one last time with sarcasm you, the architect of total war. Now pen a will that divides your meagre possessions like a petty bourgeois, leaving trinkets to Eva and nothing to the nation you've ravaged, absurd tidbit underscoring the pettiness, your vast looted wealth scattered or hidden. Yet you fuss over a few paintings and books as if they could redeem a legacy soaked in blood. The hypocrisy, a final sardonic twist that bites even as your vision blurs. The emotional resolution begins to settle. Fear, crisis resolving into a strange, empathetic reflection. You weren't born to this end. Just a boy from Braunau whose underdog failures, art school rejections, trench survivals, putsch humiliations twisted into a monstrous ascent. Empathy emerging for that fractured self you long ago buried under layers of Führer myth. A gentle acknowledgement that your story is a cautionary bedtime whisper about how unchecked grudges devour from within. Visual zoom-out poetic, the bunker's cramped study fades to the garden above, where your body will soon lie amid shell craters and blooming spring flowers trampled underfoot. Motifs of crashing artillery now mutating into the silence after the shot, where filth symbolizes the scorched legacy left for a world to sift through. Despair giving way to the quiet dawn of accountability. You swallow the cyanide ampule alongside the gunshot, the bitter crunch a sensory finale that floods your mouth with chemical fire. Ever beside you, mirroring the act in quiet solidarity. Her perfume a faint floral note clinging briefly amid the cordite smoke that fills the room. The act is swift, your form slumping as aides rush in, the air thickening with the sharp report's echo and the metallic scent of blood pooling on the carpet. Textures of warm liquid soaking through fabric a final, intimate betrayal of the body you've abused. They carry you up to the shell-pocked garden, gasoline poured over your remains in a hasty pyre, flames crackling hungrily against the backdrop of Berlin's inferno, the smoke rising in dark plumes that blend with the city's haze, a visual testament to the Empire's self-immolation. The Reich collapses in your wake, Berlin surrendering on May 2nd amid streets choked with rubble and the acrid reek of surrender, Soviet flags hoisting over the Reichstag's ruins like mocking banners, the air alive with the cheers of liberators and the sobs of the defeated. Your legacy sucks into the vacuum trials loom in Nuremberg, where the courtroom's polished wood and stern judges replace your rally podiums. The scent of fresh ink on indictments mingling with the musty odour of captured documents that detail your crimes in chilling bureaucracy. Sensory echoes persist, the click of cameras capturing defendants' gaunt faces. The hush as survivors testify, their voices trembling with memories of gas chambers' hisses and crematoria's roars. Textures of yellowed photos passed among jurors like relics of horror. Empathy resolves in the lessons your underdog failure, a boy rejected, a soldier betrayed, a putsch survivor teaches that resilience without compassion breeds monsters. A gentle bedtime insight that grudges, if nurtured. Spreading into global nightmares, modern parallel whispering like a lullaby extremism born from personal failure echoes in social media rants today, where keyboard warriors spiral into echo chambers, much like your beer hall speeches, building digital Reichs on foundations of hate. Historical debate lingers softly. Was justice at Nuremberg full, prosecuting 24 top Nazis with hangings and sentences that etched crimes against humanity into law, or incomplete? As some argue, mid-level perpetrators slipped through to rebuild lives amid the ruins, their quiet reintegration a sardonic epilogue to your chaos. The visual of the Nuremberg courtroom fades to poetic reflection, defendants in the dock under harsh lights that expose every wrinkle of guilt, the zoom-out capturing the Palace of Justice standing amid rebuilt streets, motifs of gunshot silence now the quiet of verdicts read aloud, where despair mutates into the dawn of accountability, symbolizing redemption's tentative steps for a world scarred but surviving. Your sucked legacy unfolds in denazification's grind. Questionnaires probing millions for party ties. The air and occupation offices thick with the rustle of forms and the scent of fresh carbon copies. Empathy for the ordinary Germans, teachers, clerks, youths grappling with complicity. Their underdog reconstruction a mirror to your own twisted rise. Sarcasm fading into wisdom, that true strength lies in facing failures, not weaponizing them. Shocking element resolves the arc your ashes scattered or buried in secrecy by Soviets to prevent shrines. Yet myths of escape sprout like weeds. Absurd tidbit. FBI files in the 1950s probed South American sightings. Declassified docs revealing Hoover's own paranoia chasing ghosts. A sardonic twist where your immortality lives in conspiracy rather than conquest. Modern parallel eases the chill like viral hoaxes today spreading misinformation about fallen leaders. Your afterlife teaches vigilance against denial, empathy for survivors whose testimonies outlast the lies, a bedtime hush where reflection invites peace. Don't let failure fester. Sleep soundly, knowing resilience redeems. The strange image resolves an empty bunker chair toppled in dust, the mood shifting from lingering fear to empathetic closure, curiosity yielding to the quiet lessons that echo into sleep. Ironic question invites reflection. If your ultimate failure birthed global justice, would you see the sarcasm in history's verdict, or find solace in the empathy it demands? You awaken to the ashen dawn of accountability in the months following May 1945, the world above the bunker emerging from the rubble like a scarred survivor, piecing together shattered limbs, where the silence of your gunshot has given way to the clamour of trials, testimonies, and the slow grind of reconstruction that seeks to bury your shadow under layers of truth and remembrance. The air in Nuremberg's Palace of Justice carries the crisp scent of fresh varnish and ink, a stark contrast to the bunker's fetid dampness. As prosecutors from the Allied nations assemble in November 1945, their voices echoing off high ceilings in measured tones that dissect your legacy with surgical precision. The loneliness spreading now diffused into the collective grief of a continent, mutating from your personal void into a shared void, filled with names etched into memorials, where motifs of the final ampule's crunch dissolve into the soft rustle of legal documents, that catalogue crimes too vast for comprehension, symbolising the despair's transformation into a structured pursuit of justice, where light begins to pierce the perpetual twilight of denial. Sensory immersion draws you into the courtroom's hush, the smooth texture of wooden benches under jurors' hands, the faint metallic click of stenographers' machines recording every word, the air growing heavy with the weight of evidence rolls of film whirring in projectors, their beams cutting through dimness to reveal grainy horrors of liberated camps, emaciated figures staring back with eyes that accuse across time. You, in absentia, become the spectral defendant. Your underdog arc from rejected artist to self-immolated tyrant laid bare in indictments that charge not just war but crimes against humanity. Empathy, resolving in the quiet acknowledgement that your story serves as a mirror for humanity's darker potentials. A gentle bedtime insight that even the most twisted paths begin with ordinary steps. Modern parallel murmuring softly in today's digital age, where echo chambers amplify personal failures into viral hatreds, much like your beer hall rants evolved into radio broadcasts. The lesson whispers to release resentments before they metastasize, sleeping soundly in the knowledge that vigilance guards against repetition. The trials unfold with meticulous drama, During dominating the dock with his defiant smirk and tailored suits, the air around him thick with the faint odour of cologne masking his morphine withdrawal sweats. His testimony a sardonic performance, where he claims, "I had no knowledge of the camps." Absurd tidbit revealing the hypocrisy. He, who looted Europe's art treasures for his Karen Hall estate, amassing a collection valued at over 500 million in today's terms, now feigns ignorance while prosecutors unveil documents signed in his hand. Sarcasm underscoring the farce as he chews a cyanide capsule on October 15, 1946, robbing the hangman of his due in a final act of control that echoes your own bunker escape from justice. Empathy emerges for the prosecutors, underdogs in this legal arena, sifting through mountains of Nazi records over 3,000 tons of documents, hauled from salt mines and hidden vaults, their resilience a quiet counter to the regime's bureaucratic evil. Much like whistleblowers in post-Watergate America exposing governmental corruption amid stacks of redacted files. Visual zoom-out poetic, the courtroom's oak panels gleam under chandeliers that cast steady light. A contrast to your bunker's sputtering bulbs, the defendants in their row like fallen idols under scrutiny. The scene expanding to encompass the city's rebuilt spires rising from wartime craters. Motifs of crashing waves from Normandy, now the steady flow of witness testimonies washing away denial's debris, where filth mutates into the cleansed slate of verdicts, despair yielding to the structured hope of international law. Speer, your architect of armaments, plays the repentant technocrat, his cultured demeanour and partial admissions earning a 20-year sentence at Spandau, where the air in his cell carries the musty scent of regret-tinged memoirs he pens in secret. Smuggling pages out in laundry baskets, absurd tidbit. The man who designed your grandiose Berlin now sketches prison routines. His insight, a calculated bid for sympathy, that some historians debate as genuine remorse or shrewd survival. Empathy, softening for his underdog narrative of a dreamer ensnared by power. Parallel to modern executives in corporate scandals claiming I was just following orders while penning bestsellers from minimum security prisons, the hangings on October 16, 1946 unfold in the gymnasium's chill, the air heavy with the creak of ropes and the final gasp of Ribbentrop, Keitel, and others, their bodies twitching in the dim light before dropping into oblivion. A sensory finale where the thud of trapdoors echoes your bunker's gunshot. Textures of coarse nooses abrading necks, a grim mirror to the chains you forged for millions. 11 executions in total. The scene a cathartic release for victims' families gathered outside, their tears mingling with autumn rain that washes the streets clean. Empathy surging for the underdogs who testified survivors like Rudolf Verber, who escaped Auschwitz to warn the world, his voice trembling yet resolute in Hungarian accents that pierced the courtroom's formality. Much like civil rights witnesses in 1960s America recounting lynchings to juries, their courage a beacon amid systemic darkness. Historical debate lingers in the verdict's wake. Did Nuremberg establish enduring precedents for genocide trials, influencing the International Criminal Court, or fall short by selective prosecution? As critics argue, the Allies ignored their own bombings of Dresden or Hiroshima, a hypocrisy that taints the scales of justice. Modern parallel draws a soft, reflective veil in today's international courts, pursuing war criminals from Bosnia to Syria. The echoes of your crimes demand ongoing vigilance, where empathy for victims bridges eras, a bedtime hush reminding that justice, though imperfect, is humanity's quiet stand against recurrence, sleeping soundly in the assurance that memory's light outshines denial's shadows. The denazification extends beyond the courtroom, sweeping through Germany's zones like a cleansing wind. The American sector's questionnaires probing 13 million souls for party ties. The air in makeshift offices thick with the rustle of forms and the scent of carbon duplicates, where ordinary folk bakers hiding armbands, secretaries denying knowledge, face classifications that strip jobs or freedoms, sensory details evoking the scratch of pencils on endless pages, the chill of waiting rooms where families huddle anxiously, visual cinematic lines snaking outside occupation buildings under grey skies, the zoom-out poetic capturing rebuilt towns emerging from rubble like tentative green shoots, motifs of gunshot silence now the soft turn of bureaucratic stamps, where filth mutates into the purged archives of a nation striving for rebirth, despair dissolving into the structured hope of re-education programs that rewrite textbooks and minds alike. Empathy resolves in the underdog's reconstruction, displaced persons, camps swelling with Holocaust survivors, their barracks reeking of lye soap and fresh lumber as they rebuild lives amid UNRWA aid packages, resilience shining in shared meals and whispered stories that defy erasure. Parallel to post-depression migrant workers in America forging communities from Hooverville's ashes. Shocking element twists anew your ashes, scattered by Soviets to prevent pilgrimage. Spawn myths of survival FBI probes into the 1970s chasing South American sightings. Over 1,000 pages of declassified files revealing Hoover's obsession with Hitler alive rumors. Absurd tidbit that even in death, you evade closure. Sarcasm whispering the irony of your immortal Reich reduced to tabloid fodder. The trial's legacy endures in laws against denial, where German classrooms teach your rise not as distant law but living warning. The air in schools fresh with chalk dust and open books. Empathy for young minds absorbing the horror, a gentle bridge to prevention. Modern parallel eases into reflection in social media's battle against hate speech, where algorithms flag echoes of your propaganda. The insight is to confront personal failures before they spreading, sleeping peacefully in empathy's embrace, where history's scars become wisdom's guides. The resolution deepens in global remembrance, Yad Vashem's eternal flame flickering in Jerusalem, its air solemn with incense and murmured prayers, visual poetic of names etched in stone walls that stretch like endless testimonies, motifs of cyanide's bite now the soft glow of memory's vigilance, where despair yields to the resilient dawn of never again. Empathy blooms fully you, the underdog devoured by his own myth, teach that true legacy lies not in power's grasp but in humanity's release. A bedtime hush where irony fades, reflection invites peace, and the world sleeps wiser. Ironic question invites reflection. If your end sparked a rebirth from ashes, would you see the sarcasm in history's redemption, or envy the empathy it affords the survivors? You settle into the tranquil hush of May 1945's aftermath. The Führerbunker's grim silence now a distant echo swallowed by the world's tentative rebirth, where the acrid smoke of Berlin's pyres dissipates into spring breezes carrying the faint, renewing scent of rain-washed earth and budding lilacs pushing through cracked pavement. The loneliness spreading that once consumed you in life now fades into the collective memory of a scarred humanity, mutating from your personal abyss into a shared reservoir of lessons drawn from the depths, where motifs of the final gunshot's reverberation dissolve into the soft rustle of turning pages in history books, symbolizing the despair's transformation into wisdom's gentle illumination, a light that guides without blinding, warming without burning. You're no longer the spectral figure haunting the bunker. The fear from your self-inflicted end has resolved into a profound peace for the living. Paranoia replaced by the quiet assurance that evil's grip loosens when confronted with truth. The discomfort has ceased whisper in the wind that carries forward the stories of those who endured. Sensory immersion eases you into this resolution, the fresh, loamy aroma of turned soil in liberated fields where survivors plant first crops amid mine-cleared furrows. The textures of rough-hewn memorials rising from rubble, their stone surfaces warming under tentative sunlight that filters through rebuilding scaffolds. A gentle warmth that thaws the chill of memory without erasing its lessons. The world above emerges from the filth of war. Cities like Warsaw and Rotterdam stirring with the clatter of hammers and the hum of cranes. The air alive with the scent of fresh mortar and baking bread from reopened ovens. Visual motifs of crimson banners now replaced by the multicolored flags of liberation fluttering like promises kept. Where despair yields to the structured hope of reconstruction, symbolizing redemption's painstaking weave from threads of sorrow. The emotional wind-down begins in earnest. Empathy resolving as you reflect on why it truly sucked to be you. Self-destructive hatred. That self-inflicted hatred born from Vienna's rejections and the trenches' betrayals. Spiraling into a vortex that devoured not just enemies, but your own humanity. A bedtime hush where the irony of your greatness settles like a soft blanket, the dictator who commanded millions yet died alone in a hole. Great in delusion, but ultimately reduced to ashes scattered to prevent shrines. Sarcasm whispering that your 1,000-year dream lasted a mere 12, crumbling under the weight of its own absurdity. Absurd tidbit softens the edge with the sardonic chuckle. You, obsessed with racial purity, relied on a quack doctor injecting you with extracts from animal testicles for vitality. Over 1,000 such treatments documented in Morell's logs, turning your body into a grotesque experiment that mirrored the horrors you inflicted on others. Ironic. Isn't it the man preaching superiority reduced to a pharmacological puppet? His iron will propped by sheep glands and amphetamines. A final hypocrisy that invites gentle empathy for the broken boy beneath the monster, reminding that failure's seeds, if watered with grudge, bloom into self-destruction. Historical debate resolves in reflective tones. Did your sucked legacy wars 70 million dead? Holocaust 6 million erased birth, a new era of international justice. As Nuremberg's precedents influenced the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, codifying protections against the tyrannies you embodied, or remain incomplete. As critics argue, the trial's focus on victors' narratives overlooked Allied bombings like Dresden's firestorm that claimed 25,000 lives in a night. The air in those post-war deliberations carried the weight of such questions. The scent of fresh printed charters mingling with the musty odor of archived atrocities. Empathy surging for the underdogs who shaped the future delegates like Eleanor Roosevelt, channeling America's post-depression resilience to forge rights from ruins. Their quiet determination a parallel to survivors rebuilding lives amid displaced persons camps, where the clatter of soup ladles and communal kitchens echoed the rhythm of renewal. Visual zoom-out poetic. The Nuremberg courtroom's oak panels give way to global vistas, where memorials rise like silent sentinels. Anne Frank's house in Amsterdam, its narrow stairs creaking under visitors' feet. The air thick with the preserved scent of aged wood and ink from hidden diaries. Auschwitz's barbed wire fences rusting under Polish skies. The motifs of crashing waves from your failed invasions, now the steady flow of pilgrims to these sites, where filth of the past mutates into polished stones bearing names. Despair dissolving into the light of education's dawn, symbolizing humanity's underdog triumph over your darkness. Your self-destructive hatred echoes in today's social media landscapes, where personal failures fuel viral extremism, much like your Putsch rants grew into radio tirades. Influencers building digital Reichs on grievances that spreading unchecked think cancel culture mobs or conspiracy threads spiraling into division. The lesson, a soft murmur to watch for echo chambers before they isolate. Sleeping peacefully, knowing empathy bridges divides. Empathy resolves fully in the resilience of victims, Romani families reclaiming traditions amid post-war migrations, their campfires flickering like defiant torches in European nights, parallel to Native American communities overcoming Dust Bowl displacements with cultural revivals. Their underdog stories a testament to survival's quiet power. Declassified CIA files from the 1950s reveal probes into your survival in Colombia or Antarctica. Over 700 tips dismissed as hoaxes. Absurd tidbit that even Hoover's paranoia mirrored yours. Chasing ghosts while ignoring real threats. A sardonic footnote to your legacy. Where death couldn't silence the myths. Irony whispering that your immortality lives in denial's fringes. Empathy for hunters like Simon Wiesenthal who pursued justice tirelessly. Their resilience a bedtime balm. The resolution blooms in global remembrance. Holocaust museums worldwide. Like Washington's echoing halls filled with the soft hum of audio guides recounting escapes. The air-conditioned and solemn. Textures of glass cases protecting faded yellow stars and striped uniforms that whisper of endurance. Visual poetic closure. A child's drawing from Theresienstadt preserved under spotlights. Its colours vibrant against the grey of history. Motifs of cyanide's bite. Now the gentle turn of exhibit pages, where despair yields to education's light. Symbolising redemption's weave from sorrow's threads. Survivors like Viktor Frankl penning man's search for meaning from camp horrors. His words a lighthouse for post-depression souls seeking purpose amid loss, parallel to American civil rights leaders drawing strength from shared suffering. The sucked essence of your life, Kujon Danjenhui diet, teaches that hatred self-harms, a final insight where irony fades, reflection invites peace, sleeping soundly in the assurance that memory's vigilance guards tomorrow's dawn. If your darkness birthed such resilient light, would you see the sarcasm in history's redemption, or envy the empathy it affords those who rose from your ashes? You drift into the serene twilight of remembrance. The echoes of Nuremberg's gavel fading like distant thunder, rolling away over healing horizons, where the air softens with the gentle scent of blooming fields, reclaiming scarred earth. A whisper of renewal that caresses your senses without demand. The loneliness spreading dissolves at last. No longer a storm, but a faint breeze carrying seeds of growth, mutating from despair's grip into the quiet expanse of lessons learned, where motifs of fading torchlight now glow as embers in hearths of memory, symbolising peace's warm embrace over history's cold ashes. You're no longer entangled in the web of sucked legacy. The fears ebbed into tranquility, discomfort yielding to the soft rhythm of reflection, where empty halls of the past fill with voices of resilience, their stories breathing life into the void. Final insight Lich Su emerges softly. Your underdog failures birthed a world wiser to hatred's cost. Justice rising from ashes, like phoenixes in trials that etched humanity's safeguards. A gentle parallel to modern hope. Today's activists channeling Great Depression grit into fights for equality, turning personal scars into collective strength. Sleeping soundly, knowing empathy outlasts empire. The wind down cradles you in catharsis, triumph in reflection's triumph over ruin. Bin Yen settling like a blanket woven from survivors' threads. For more whispers from history's shadows, like this video, comment your favourite ironic twist from tonight's tale, and subscribe to Whisper Historian Tease Ahead. Next we explore why it sucked to be a Roman emperor in decline. Share if this eased you into dreams. In this fade, let peace whisper history's scars heal when we remember with heart.